I decided to take the WRX engine out, and I'm going to put the old EJ251 back in.
This is for you.
I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I decided to put the stock engine back in. It has better compression, and I just don't want to deal with this bar thing and just the unknowns of driving the WRX engine. So put the old one back in. I'm going to do a bunch of maintenance to it. So I have the intake manifold off. I'm planning to pull the heads in the engine. I'll see if it can be done. The reason why I'm doing that is because the engine stand is being used. I'm trying to sell that one. I don't want to put that down and then put this engine in and then work on it and put that back up. And I want to see if I can remove the heads from here. And let's see, I have a bunch of stuff on the floor. I have the multi-layer steel head gaskets. I have the valve cover gaskets, the spark plug seals, the things that go behind the cylinder heads, just a bunch of gaskets. These are like a bunch of O-rings. This is for like throttle body, intake manifold gasket, the valve stem seals, some coolant lines, this is the OEM timing belt, new water pump, new fuel lines, new exhaust gaskets, the camshaft seals. I think one of these is also the oil pump seal, another coolant line. We got this valve spring compressor, so I can put these seals in. Got a new tensioner, three idler pulleys, and yeah, that's about it. So I'm not going to go into too much detail of putting each part on. So I'll probably just do a quick like video of me putting the part on, or like after it's been on. So right now I have the flywheel and clutch off, and then I'm just gonna put the new flywheel and clutch in. Got the flywheel in, torqued it down to 53 foot-pounds based on this pattern. New clutch and pressure plate. This is the old one. Clutch has been installed. This engine's so much smaller. I'm redoing the wiring for the GC8 ECU, so pretty much just did the reverse of this process. The ones in red are the ones that I've done so far, and it was a lot quicker this time around because I didn't have to figure out what wire went where. I just had to locate the previous wire that I cut and spliced and then match that wire with the same color on the GC8 ECU. Alright. Got the car running with the stock engine again. There's no check engine light codes. That's a good thing. That means the wiring is correct. Cylinder 1. (180). Cylinder 3. Cylinder 2. Cylinder 4. I got the cylinder head off. It actually wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. This old head gasket is pretty much trashed. Looking at the conditions of the cylinders, and they seem pretty good. I did notice that there's a bunch of grime or rust, so maybe the previous owner knew that there was a head gasket leak and they used that stop leak stuff, or this is just rust that accumulated over the years. Not too sure yet, but I'm going to try cleaning it out and then putting the heads back on. I have a straight edge and it looks like it's pretty much flat. I don't know if I need to get it resurfaced. So this side, the driver's side, was more difficult. You see that bolt down there? It was long enough where it would be hitting the frame. So what I did was I removed the wheel, and then there's two bolts, 17mm bolts holding the cross member. Loosen those and then drop this so I can slide the bolt out. Head seems pretty straight. Doing this again, it's daytime. Yesterday I was recording at night and we have the straight edge on. The clearance requirement is 0.05 millimeters or 0.002 inches. So I have this straight edge on and this is the clearance. If it fits through, then it needs to be resurfaced. So it looks pretty good. I'm gonna try rotating it around. It's good. And here as well. It's good. Yeah, I'm going to do this without the camera, but I'm essentially just going to run through this and make sure there's no gap. I'm going through the heads with a razor blade and then a Scotch-Brite pad to just clean up the surface. That's before, and this is pretty much the final. I'm going to do a little more to get that out. I took these two pieces off in order to get to the seal, so I'm going to replace this one with the new one, and then there's this plastic one in the back. I'm replacing it with the metal one, and then I'll use the spring compressor, push this down, and then remove the spring, and then change those seals. We have this tool, and I just clamped it onto the table, and under compression you can see that you can take these pins out. I'm going to take them out, then that's what holds the spring in place. Got these two out, so I release the compression from the tool, then I can pull the spring out. Then as you can see, this is the valve and then the seal underneath it. Old one and the new one. Put this plastic piece over the valve, it helps as a guide. This just goes in. I'm also using a 10mm socket. It fits exactly perfectly around the seal, and I'm just gently tapping it and it seems to be going in. Got all of them out. This is the right camshaft. I cleaned it up a bit. I put the new seal in the front and the one in the back. I'm going to put some ultra gray over there and then tighten it back on. New gasket. Two of these pins that go right there that hold the cylinder head in place got bent when I was taking the head out, so I bought two new ones. These are the new head gaskets. They actually look the same as the ones that were taken off, but these are just so worn down. Not sure when it was last replaced. To make sure it lines up right there, I had it flipped around the other way just so you can see what brand it was. Same right there. Got the passenger side head on, so I had to have the three studs hanging out of the head going in first, and then once that was in, I was able to feed the other three on the top. I couldn't get this last bolt in due to clearance, so I have to jack up the car, or jack up the engine. water pump on the left, the old one's on the right, and then I have some new hoses as well, new thermostat. This is what it looks like. The fuel pump out, doing a little bit of cleaning. There's a lot of like leftover sealant. I have the new seal that goes in the front, so I'm going to pop that one out, clean this a bit more, put that back in, and then clean this area as well. This is the old seal, just pulled it off. I have the new oil pump seal on, so essentially I just used the old one and a 35mm socket and just used the back of a wrench and tapped it in. Going to replace the O-rings for the water pipe. I checked the new belt. I don't know if this is a knockoff or what, but it looks like a genuine OEM, genuine Subaru timing belt. Yeah, it looks like a genuine Subaru timing belt, but it actually doesn't have any tick marks. I'm not sure if they're all like that, but just in case. I rotated this to top dead center. There's a mark right there, it needs to line up with the mark right there. And then coming over here, this camshaft sprocket mark needs to line up with this. I just used a Sharpie and marked that there, marked that there. Same thing over here. I don't know if there's supposed to be like a rear timing cover, but this doesn't have it. So just followed this and marked it right there. New idler pulleys and tensioner. I found this way of torquing the cam bolts, so you essentially use your old belt, wrap it as shown right here, and then just do it to 58 foot-pounds. Then for this side, you do the same thing, but this gap is now on this side, and it kind of holds it in place when you tighten it. Got the new timing belt on. Well, I had the lower two pulleys off. I lined up this mark, fed it through here, had this lined up right there, and then I had to use this ratchet with a 17mm socket because at rest this tick mark would be over here. So I had to turn it, and then once this was in the middle, left it there, and then it's held on by tension right now. And then I fed it through here, put this pulley in, pushed it down towards the bottom right, put that in, and then pulled the belt up and got that in. So just want to make sure that the marks are lined up. Doesn't have to be exact, I'll recheck it. This should be lined up with this mark right there. This is supposed to line up with this mark right there. It's a little off. And then same with this one, but it's pretty consistent. I'm gonna tighten everything to 29-30 foot-pounds and then do like a test to make sure they line back up. Just double checking these marks. Gonna pull this. Gonna do a few rotations to make sure it lines back up. Right now I'm going to adjust the valves. Just a quick rundown. At 12 o'clock, this is cylinder 1 top dead center. At 3 o'clock, that is cylinder 3 top dead center. Down here is cylinder 2, and there is cylinder 4. So what does that mean? This is cylinder 1, this is cylinder 3, this is cylinder 2, this is cylinder 4. So when I have this up here at 12 o'clock, I'm going to focus on cylinder 1. There's 2 intake valves and 2 exhaust valves. I'm putting a feeler gauge in between. The intake spec is 0.2 millimeters, so putting a 0.2 millimeter feeler gauge in there. I use the 10 millimeter wrench to break this nut to loosen it, and then I use this flathead screwdriver turn it clockwise to tighten it or counterclockwise to loosen it till this feeler gauge is like firm but not too loose but not too tight either. And then I just use the wrench and tighten it back up. So I'll do that for the top two and then do it for the bottom. The bottom exhaust specs are 0.25 millimeters. And then I'll rotate this, move on to the next ones. It was hard to tell where exactly this was at 3 o'clock, so what I did was actually marked the bottom of this. Originally there's this yellow mark on the bottom, and then when you actually rotate it one full turn, this goes half. So if it was up there, it would be down there. I decided to mark the bottom, so when this was at the top, it would either be at 3 o'clock or 9 o'clock. Doing cylinder 3 right now. I put the new spark plug seals in. I also have the new valve cover gaskets. I'm replacing the fuel lines, and then I'm going to replace these gaskets. Got the injectors out. I'm going to replace the O-rings. New intake manifold gaskets. This is the last exhaust gasket that I haven't replaced since I've owned this car. Sounds a lot smoother than it was before. The other day I was cruising down the highway, probably going 40 miles an hour and around 2500 RPM, wasn't even pushing it. The car started making this weird noise, and my check engine light, my battery light, my oil pressure light came on, and I thought like it was making this tapping noise and I wasn't sure what was going on, so pulled over to a neighborhood, just coasted down, and couldn't start the car up. When I got it towed, and when I got home, noticed that the cams were not lined up, and eventually decided to pull the engine, and this is what I noticed. Took the passenger side head off, and all the exhaust valves are bent. I'm not sure what caused it, whether it was a tensioner, the brand new tensioner, or the belt. One thing I noticed was that the belt that came off that was working for the past 2 years is a Gates T307. Per the manual, you know, the Gates application guide and all the other stuff, it says it's a T304. So I'm thinking maybe the previous owner might have done an engine swap from a car like a Legacy that year, or maybe newer, and put the wrong belt in and put the correct belt in. And so I got the Subaru one that's supposed to match this Gates one, and I don't know if it skipped a tooth or what. So I have decided to buy a Gates one just to check the marks, because the Subaru didn't have them and they match up, and just gonna see what the difference is between the two belts. I have the T304 on top and the T307 on the bottom, and from what I can tell, they're both 223 teeth. The top ones are supposed to have different curvatures based on the sprocket, and they said if your passenger side sprocket is plastic, you're supposed to use the T304, which is not the belt that was on the car originally.
This is the T307 that was originally on it, and it doesn't look like it's the correct one based on how it's fitting on the teeth, but it was working. This is the Subaru one that I had on, and looks like it's the correct one. And this is the Gates T304, and it looks correct too, but the T307 was working before, so I'm thinking maybe I should put a brand new T307 on. I'm not really sure what other differences there are. This is the driver's side camshaft, and this is the T307 belt that came off, and it looks like it fits. It's hard to tell because this lip is in the way, if this is the correct one, but I can't really tell if there's a gap. This is the T304 that's similar to the Subaru. Looks like it fits as well. It's really hard to tell. This is the T304. Looks like it fits. This is the T307 that came off. Looks like it fits too. The new T307 belt came. Just want to compare it over the T304. The T307 is noticeably smaller, so it's possible that when I put the other belt on, even though it was meant for my car, it skipped a tooth and then skipped a few more and then caused the exhaust valves to seize. I got one of the exhaust valves out. You can see how bent it is. I have 4 new exhaust valves, and then I have this valve lapping tool. You would put this valve compound back here behind this valve, and then you would take this tool, just get the section, start spinning it, and then it would grind so that these two meet. You just keep doing that until you don't feel any resistance. I used the wire brush, and I don't see any noticeable damage or bent so far. This is before the valve grinding compound. This is the valve grinding compound. It almost looks like glittery glue. It's a bit difficult to do this with one hand, so I'm going to put my camera down, but pretty much just going to rotate this around. I have the head facing downwards, that way I can apply pressure. This larger one was having a hard time getting suction, so I actually used the second smallest, and it seems to be doing better. I wiped the excess compound off. They said to keep doing this until you see this light gray surface, so I guess this is it. The new exhaust valves are in. Since I had the engine on the stand, I decided to redo the sealant for the drain pan. I also have the new gasket for this. It's not the prettiest, but it'll do the job. After reinstalling the passenger side head, I installed the timing belt and noticed some binding either on the passenger side intake or the driver side exhaust. So I figured since I already have the engine out, I'm going to pull the driver side head, which had 180 psi compression, which seemed normal. Turns out these exhaust valves, all 4 of them, are bent. So I gotta do the same thing on this side as well. Kind of sucks. I installed 2 exhaust valves and decided to check this camshaft sprocket, and when I was turning it, I noticed that all of these were seating, so I guess the position where I had it before, it was making these 4 exhaust valves stick up a bit, so they weren't really bent. But I already changed 2 of them. I'll just leave it for now and leave the rest as is. I got the car running again after I replaced the intake valve, so I just want to make sure that it's running before I put the timing cover back on. It is, and then the alternator seems to be working. It's not going over like 15 volts. Originally it was reading 16 plus volts just hooked on without the car running, and I thought my alternator failed, but it turned out my multimeter battery was bad. So it looks to be running. I'm gonna put the radiator box back on, and then I'm gonna drive it around the block probably for 30 minutes just to make sure that
the timing doesn't slip again or whatever doesn't fail and I don't have to tow it. So here it is. Noticing a very thick white smoke coming from the exhaust. Could be that I had coolant in the cylinders or something might be leaking, but we'll see. Actually, it can't be leaking because there's no coolant inside. So I'm not sure what this is. Maybe it's just because I haven't ran it for a while, but hopefully it goes away. The GC8 is running again. They said to put this stuff in for about a few weeks, and I've actually had this in for over half a year. And I haven't really been driving the car much, but I figured I'd give it a flush and see how all that stuff looks like when it comes out. Here's the stuff. I'm going to replace this filter that I put in not too long ago with a K&N one. It's a high flow one. I just cleaned it and greased it, and it just goes in there. There's 3 clips, one right there, there, and then I just pushed this apart and then pulled it out. I'm gonna put the new one in. Pulled off the rear GC8 sway bar, and the one on the right is WRX one. You can see that it's a lot thicker. Just putting these side by side, you can see that it's a lot thicker. So right now I'm just gonna put the WRX one on to the car. Here they are stacked on top of each other. So it looks like the mounting points line up exactly. Taking a look at this, it does look like, I don't know if this was from the accident, but it did get bent. I'm gonna put it on and then see if it works. If it doesn't, then I'll put the old one back on. I finally picked up a set of 2000 to 2001 GC8 OEM rims, wheels. These are in pretty good condition. I've actually sold a part from my WRX to a guy, and he had these, and I told him if he ever decided to sell them, just let me know, and he did. Got these for 200 bucks. It's like a steal because these tires are worth like 100 bucks alone, and they're in very good condition. The rims are in very good condition as well. The rims that originally came on this car when I bought them were spray painted gold, and they were the 2002 to 2003 WRX ones. And then I put those on my Prius. I got these. I think they're from 2004 to 2005, and they're okay, but they're chipping, and I wanted to convert this pretty much back to stock. So got those. I'm gonna put them on. Change the brightness.